Welcome to Hydro Man Ran. This episode is about the film Sorcerer by William Friedkin. We hope you enjoy this disturbing AI intro.
Is that Papa's old chair? Or Meow's old chair behind you?
I don't know whose old chair it was. They could have had it. That was, Mom said that was the rocking chair that she nursed me in. So, I mean, it is,
Okay.
it could
Maybe
very
I just
well
remember
been
from y'all's
theirs.
house.
It could be just a family chair that's been passed around. So,
That could be. It'll come to me at some point. 20, 30 years from now. I'll get it.
Oh, speaking of that, your mom made a comment on our videos that she wants, all she cares about is that we have a chapter segment where we point out whether or not Papa or not would like the movie. That's all she cares about. That's the only thing she wants to watch. So
I
was like,
saw
okay.
her. I saw her Saturday, and we were just talking for a bit. Me and her husband were going to the Bob. We're going to the Carolina game, and we were just talking for a bit, and it came up. The thing that you and I do. And I was like, yeah, at the end we always do this thing where we talk about Papa, and we say, would he like this movie or wouldn't he? And she's like, oh no, now I have to watch it. I was like,
Well,
Mom.
she made the comment on one of our top 5 movies or one of our top
on
5 videos.
on Facebook.
No, on YouTube. She made the so thank her for making a comment on YouTube because that does help.
That
But
helps us up. That's right. It
yeah,
helps us.
thank you. Yeah, and you watching this because I probably will edit this out. You should do that too. So, but with that said, this week we get to talk about one of my favorite movies, and we have intentionally tried not to talk about this in too much detail. So I'm very excited to find out how Andrew felt about this. If he's going to
I was
break
getting the vibe through text that you really wanted to ask me what I was thinking.
I did. But yeah, I'm wondering if you're going to break my heart again, like you did with In the Mouth of Madness, or
In fairness, you
yeah.
should have seen that one coming.
Yeah, I didn't think that would be your favorite, but I thought that was a horror movie. Maybe you could get on board with a little bit. I didn't think I kind of have blinders on when I'm watching that movie because I like that one so much. So we watched Sorcerer. It's a film by William Friedkin. So he'd made several movies, but he really rose up with The French Connection, and then he made The Exorcist, and then this was his big opus. This is what he considered the best movie he was able to make, and it kind of bombed at the box office. It didn't do very, very well. It was panned by critics. It came out a month before the first Star Wars movie too. So it didn't even really have time to catch on, both word of mouth before it was kind of obliterated from the theaters and Star Wars. Andrew, you don't have to say whether or not you liked it yet or not, but the storytelling, the movie making in this movie versus something like Star Wars, I mean, like Star Wars revolutionized how we tell stories. And so this has kind of became a forgotten movie. It kind of got a resurgence probably around 10 years ago. People started talking about this again as Friedkin's kind of forgotten classic. And it's a story of 4 men with kind of disparate and disturbing backgrounds that end up all together in a South American jungle. Kind of their only, they're stuck there. They want to get out, but they don't really have the means. And a job comes up where they can transport nitroglycerin in 2 trucks across a country that has zero infrastructure. It is for me, I consider it a nerve-wracking movie. Their entire journey is fraught with peril for multiple reasons. There's some fantastic scenes, and so let's get to it, Andrew. Tell me how much you hated this movie.
I mean, if you can, I'm just kidding. No, I actually really, really like this movie.
Good.
I was kind of hesitant for a bit because at first when I think you had given me like a brief synopsis, but all I really saw was the name. And at first I was like, I just don't really care about like fantasy movies because like it sounds like it's about spells and stuff, obviously. But then I looked up like just a brief synopsis, and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. But no, I really enjoyed it. I actually just now put my rating on Letterboxd because I didn't want you to see it, so I waited.
I did check that out just to see what you.
I figured you would.
Yeah, I did.
I was like, I can't let him get away with that. No, it was great. It kind of gave me. It felt like Apocalypse Now, which was actually being filmed at the same time. I realized it came out. This movie came out before Apocalypse Now, but they were being filmed at the same time, I believe, or at least they crossed over at some point. But it kind of gave me vibes of like parts of it. The journey that is gave me vibes of that. The ending kind of felt like Silence of the Lambs in a way when Hawkins is on the phone and he just kind of hangs up and starts walking towards whatever his name is. The very end kind of gave me that same vibe. The scene in particular with when they're on the that like rickety rope or bridge made of rope and plank, that I was having just horrific anxiety the whole time. I was waiting for something to happen. I was like, all right, who's dying? Who's dying? What's gonna happen?
And I will say, so like, this was my third watch through watching it for this episode, and you still get that anxiety every time. There's just something about the filmmaking. There's something about the sequence. There's something about the fact that you know that they really did that. It's very, very nerve-wracking. This entire movie is very stress-inducing. If you aren't bored with this movie, you're gonna pretty much be on the verge of a panic attack the entire time. That's the two states I can imagine somebody watching this, bored and about to have a panic attack. That's what this movie does.
You had mentioned that you had said the first half would maybe be something that I just kind of got to get through. I found the first half pretty enjoyable. I mean, it wasn't anxiety inducing. It wasn't really action packed, but I found it very intriguing, kind of watching the whole thing go along. I wasn't really, there weren't any real parts where I was bored at all.
Yeah, I just remember the first time I watched it, just not really understanding what was going on and what we were leading to as a movie.
Right.
Like it's especially like the very beginning, because it starts off by introducing you to four different characters, and it really doesn't even it barely introduces you to the hitman at all. It introduces you to a Palestinian terrorist, then it introduces you to a French businessman who's done some embezzling or something along those lines, and then it introduced you to an American. He's part of a gang of robbers who has robbed from the wrong people. Let's just say that. Got that scene, that wedding scene at the beginning. It's so weird, but it's just such a timepiece where the bride is standing there with just the darkest shiner on her face as she's getting married. Yeah, like she was just beat by her fiance the night before, and it's just it introduces you like this movie is telling you it's a very cynical movie. Like it's just there's a lack of trust and a bit of disdain for humanity. And to me, I think part of the point of the film is that humanity is kind of disgusting and gross. But if we have a shared focus, we can come together and do something and be selfless. We are capable of that. I think there's a lot of cynicism in this film, but I think there is that nugget of humanity can do something. Like we aren't great, but we have the capability of greatness in us somewhere.
Right.
To what you said too, I think the title of this film doesn't really do it a lot of service. Sorcerer is the name of one of the trucks that they're driving.
Right. Which is just kind of random. I mean, it's not a big deal. It just seems random.
Well, William Friedkin also said that to him, the sorcerer is fate. It's this mage that is controlling everything that we have no control over. We have no say over fate. It's just a sorcerer over our life. And so I think to him that was kind of the meaning of the title. I do like the original title. So this is not everybody knows this. It's a loose remake. It's not really a remake. Friedkin considered it Friedkin didn't consider it a remake, but there is a French film. There's a French book called The Wages of Fear, and
Right.
there's also a movie. I watched that also. I think that's a better title.
I like that one better.
Because The Wages of Fear is the money that they're making, that they're going to make by completing the journey. That's the wages of fear. So I like that title a little bit more. I think that's probably my biggest criticism of the film is the title, but it's still, yeah. I mean, it doesn't detract from the movie. I think it could turn people off. Just like you were like, I'm not a big fantasy guy. I think that's probably one of the reasons why it bombed.
Yeah, I mean, and I was watching a review or two, and they had mentioned that. I mean, obviously, going up against Star Wars isn't going to do you any favors. I also noticed that I didn't watch the old movie, but I noticed that in the book and the first movie, the characters were not bad guys at all. Like they were relatively decent men just trying to survive this mission. Whereas in this movie, it's very clear these are not good guys.
Yeah, they aren't. It's neither one way or the other. In the book, they aren't criminals and terrorists the way they are in Sorcerer. They're not really good or bad guys.
I guess I should clarify is the focus isn't on who they are in the first one.
Yes.
They're just people, and because they're just people, inevitably you're just going to get behind them as the good guys, just because you know nothing about them.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting point of Sorcerer is by making them these horrible people at the beginning that we see that are committing acts of terrorism and violence and embezzling and leaving their family behind. It says a lot to the filmmaking that you're still concerned about their lives. Like they're in such peril that you still care. You still the movie still humanizes them and shows them as desperate humans. I find that very interesting. How I think it could be a much more cynical film in terms of how it treats the characters. But I mean, like that final scene between what's the Palestinian and the Frenchman, where he's just talking about his watch and his wife giving him the watch, and then just one of the biggest jump scares I think in a movie, just when the truck all of a sudden blows up after this like really just sweet conversation, really humanizing moment between these two characters.
I know. Really I had to go back because for a second I thought that I had like touched my phone and it like jumped forward.
Right.
I was like that's not right, and I was like, oh wow, they just said no.
You watch this on your phone the way David Lynch wants all movies to be watched on?
Now, if you're playing the movie on a telephone, you will never in a trillion years experience the film. You'll think you have experienced it, but you'll be cheated. It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
Okay. I mean, it works for me because then I can just kind of hold it here and I can just kind of immerse myself in it.
Okay. All right.
I block
your hands are a VR headset, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Or I guess it's more like that. You remember early '90s? There was this tall red video game console, and you would get on it, and all the games were red.
It was the Virtual Boy.
That's
what you're talking about? Yeah, it's part. It was an attachment for the Game Boy.
Okay, no, then I'm thinking of something different because this one was just its own console entirely, but it was by Nintendo, I think. I don't know. It's been a while.
That's the Virtual Boy. I'm pretty sure that was just the console for.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. But no, actually, I am going to go back and watch it a second time just on my TV. And now that I've seen it, I'm like, yeah, Megan can probably see this. She'll be fine.
Yeah, and I would recommend Wages of Fear. It's a French film, so obviously, if you know, I think you like it. I don't know if some people don't like subtitles, so it is on Max, HBO Max, whatever you want to call it now. Really,
I've watched a lot of anime with subtitles. I have no problem with that.
Okay. Well, I did make you watch a Danish film two episodes ago or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, every culture.
Our lowest viewed video ever. Yay.
Mom will help that one go up. She'll figure it out.
Yeah, so the Wages of Fear compared to this one is it very much starts out the same way, very much the similar premise, but the characters it's basically the final kind of challenge that they have to get over. I think is maybe a better scene than anything in Sorcerer. I like the movie Sorcerer overall, but there's the final hurdle that they have to really get over to get the explosives is just it's a fantastic, just nerve-wracking moment, and especially for a French film from 1954, I think is, or 53,
Right.
somewhere like there. Yeah, it does a great job. It's very, very well done.
Right. I really liked, again, like I mentioned before, it gave me a lot of, it just felt like Apocalypse Now, which is one of my favorite movies. But you could really feel the harsh reality of being in that environment. And based on what I've read, they were essentially living in that environment day to day. They
Yeah.
were out in I want to say it was Dominican Republic is where most, and part of it was also shot in Mexico, because the scene where they were going over the river with the bridge, where they were going to do it initially was dried up due to a drought, so they actually had to move production out to Mexico to find the bridge.
Yeah, I've watched that one a couple times, and I've tried to see if, because I'm like, I know they dressed up steel cables. There has to be steel cables there that they're dressing up, but I cannot find a single seam in that sequence. It's so fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It happens twice. It's both trucks have to go over it. One
Yeah.
time, one of the guys falls in. It's such a that's such a good scene.
It is. It is. Just as much though, the scene where it's not as anxiety inducing, obviously, but the scene where they're driving, and it's I think it might be right after that scene actually, where it's sunny now, but then there's this giant log
Oh
in front of
yes.
them, and one of the guys just busts out laughing, just out of kind of this like nihilistic sort of perspective, like that's too late, and then you see the emotion from one of the other actors, and then they're all doing it very well. And it starts to bring out their own kind of selfish perspectives, like their own selfish character traits, where they're starting to turn on each other now that they think it's over.
Right.
But then they're able to kind of obviously come together again and make a sort of Wile E. Coyote-esque contraption to blow up the log.
Well, I like how it was the terrorist. Like they give reason why, like,
Yeah,
hey,
no, it makes perfect
why
sense.
would this guy know how to do this setup and do this
Right.
crazy thing? Like they give us just a very small reason at the beginning. And yeah, I love that.
It was a very nothing in this movie was went to waste. It was a very planned, thoughtful movie. Everything had a purpose. There were no throwaway scenes. Everything mattered.
Now let me ask you this. So this is my third time watching it, and I had an idea this time watching it that I hadn't thought of before. So Roy Scheider's character, the American, he went to the South American country because he has hitmen after him, right?
Right.
And just to spoil it for everyone, basically the movie ends with he's completed the journey, but hitmen show up at his door and he's about to get murdered by the hitmen. That's how this movie ends. It's very,
Or so we
very,
think.
no, that's how the movie ends. Those hitmen show up there, but the old man that's riding in the truck with him the entire time is also a hitman, and he kind of sneaks and weasels his way into their group, to join on their mission.
Right.
And it hit me this time. Is he there? Is he hired to kill Roy Scheider? and he's just waiting until they get to the end of the journey so he can get basically 2 paydays. He can get a payday for the journey and kill Roy Scheider, and get the payday from the mob for killing him.
That is a really good idea.
And I mean, the movie doesn't really tell you one way or the other. It doesn't really give you any clues, but
you don't know.
That just kind of hit me this time around. Like, well, he's a hitman. Why wouldn't he be there to kill Roy? Because why else is he trying to sneak on board? So
I can see that. That would be. I need to watch it again, which I am, and then pay more attention to that. But that's very possible. I like that idea.
Yeah,
that's very possible. And if that is the case, I love that they don't even hint at it. It's just kind of something that you can just pick up.
Yeah, maybe not. It's the whole you don't know really what's going on. But even in that case, well, this guy, even if this guy is sent there to kill him, well, now they're in this thing together.
Right.
This life or death situation, and they both need each other to survive. So even if he is there to murder him, it's got to wait until they get out away from the nitroglycerin. So
he was initially supposed to be played by several other actors, including Clint Eastwood and Steve McQueen.
No, it was Steve McQueen. The part was written for Steve McQueen, and he had gotten married to what was the woman he got married? I can't remember the lady he got married to, but he got married to.
Like an hour ago.
He had just gotten married, and so he would only do the movie if William Friedkin offered his wife a role, and he was like, "Well, kind of the only role we really have for a woman with speaking lines is this French man's wife." Like, yeah, and so
was it Ally McGraw?
Yeah, that's it. Yes, from Love Story, and she's in a couple other movies, but Love Story was her big movie. I think she was in Love Story. Maybe wrong. But yeah, so Steve McQueen wouldn't do it because there wasn't a big enough part for her, and he didn't want to leave his newlywed lifestyle just at that point in time. You have a dog? What is that?
No, that's my cat.
Okay. Must be in a room with a litter box. All right. Yeah, the other actors apparently. So the Palestinian guy was that role was written for the actor, and the actor's name is Amadou. So he's been in a bunch of other stuff. William Friedkin loved his stuff. The French guy was written for someone, or he wanted somebody else, but he couldn't get the French actor he wanted to play. So it's Bruno Crema, I think is the guy's name. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember. There's a really interesting movie, and I think I found it on YouTube, and it's oh gosh, what's the guy's name? The guy that directed Drive, and he directed the Pusher movies, the Pusher trilogy.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But he Nicolas Winding Refn or something like that. Is that his Remph?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's an interview. It's like an hour and a half movie documentary or whatever, where he interviews William Friedkin just on this movie, and you get a ton of background. You get a ton of William Friedkin's thought, and it was made just a few years ago, so you really get to see him as kind of a grumpy and ornery old man. It's really kind of fun. So if I like that director a lot. I love his style. And I love William Friedkin, and I love this movie. So it was kind of a perfect kind of video to watch.
Sure.
I mean, I'll put a link maybe in our description if I can find it to wherever I watched on YouTube. So that's a good one. It's full of tons of information on this movie if you want to learn more about it. Which I'm sure that one will probably come up in a search before our video will. So you probably already watched it. You don't need to again.
I should.
Yeah. But yeah. So I'm glad you like this movie.
I'm glad you introduced it to me. This was excellent.
Yeah, and
I was a tad nervous when you said that you wanted to kind of jump this in, because I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna hate this one too.
yeah, and the reason we
Okay.
jumped it in is William Friedkin died about 2 months ago, so we wanted
That's
to
right.
kind
Yeah.
of go ahead and cover this one. Um, and it's probably my favorite film by him, which it says a lot, considering he did The French Connection and he did The Exorcist. I mean, I love both those movies too. Um, he probably died because he found out that they edited The French Connection. I'm sure that pissed him off. That may have actually ended up killing him. Um,
Either
which
that
it's kind of
or
horrible. If you don't have a physical copy of The French Connection, they cut out a whole chunk of dialogue that really gives you insight into the characters. It's really kind of awful.
was it due to some kind of like
One of the
censorship?
characters one of the characters says a racial slur, but he's kind of, I mean, like it's Roy Scheider and it's Gene Hackman,
Right.
and they're kind of dirty cops. They're kind of like the characters in this movie, right? They're not perfect men. They're not shown as paragons of humanity. They're shown as, you know, dirty, true humans.
Yeah.
And
Those
that
are
was,
the kind of people who are going to use those words.
yeah, and it was shown as these, you know, they're racist cops. That's what the whole
Right.
scene showed. Like it was
What a
kind of one of
movie.
those, it's kind of one of those scenes like, yeah, these guys are upholding the law, but they're not perfect humans. And it was, yeah. So it's kind of sucks that got edited. Nothing
Well,
like,
go watch Django Unchained, and then you can go ahead and edit out of there, because slave owners would never use that word.
no, slave owners are very respectful to their slaves.
All right, we're canceled. Fantastic. Oh, goodness.
You always have to add. I love it when people add that in. No, some slave owners were good. They're still slave owners. What are you talking about? They're not good.
Some were not as evil as others, maybe, but if you
They
own people as your
they
property,
still own people.
yeah, you don't qualify as good. You are below the bar. I'm sorry.
They didn't whip them, but they still owned them and took away their freedoms. What are you talking about? Okay.
Do you think they would have if they could? Maybe they would.
maybe they had a bad shoulder, so they weren't able to whip them. Maybe that's why they were good. Who knows?
Bad shoulders makes you a good person.
Yeah, apparently. I'll let my wife know. She'll appreciate that. Okay, so that's the movie Sorcerer. I hope we talked about it enough. Love this movie.
Very
The
good.
other thing, in Tangerine Dream soundtrack, I forgot to mention. I love Tangerine Dream. This is just a fantastic soundtrack. They ended up doing a lot of stuff in the '80s. It's very, very weird. I could see it being off-putting for some people. Probably not one that they would just want to put on in the background, but I love it.
I wouldn't put it for the background, but it really fit the movie. It really
Yeah.
fit the movie.
Which William Friedkin just gave them, I think, the script, and they gave him a bunch of tracks. So it was all recorded before the movie was even finished. Like he got all these tapes when he was in the Dominican Republic filming. So he had to go through. I think there's something about that, how he had to, like, they didn't even have a tape player to play the tapes that they were sending him, so he had to go find a way of even like listening to the music, because they were so out in the wilderness, out in the jungle.
That's impressive.
So I guess we'll ask the question we ask every time: is this a movie you think Papa would like?
Oh, absolutely. I think this seems right up his alley. Not his favorite one, obviously, but I think this is something that he would watch several times.
Yeah. So my mom said that we watched this when I was younger, because it is. I mean, it's technically it's rated PG, so I mean, I'm sure they would have put it on when I was in the room, not really worrying about it, not thinking about how bloody
Right.
that shootout is at the end. But
Yeah.
I think he would have liked it. I don't know if whenever I watched it, if I watched it with him or not. I kind of wish I knew that. I could. there's a part of me that thinks he would have liked The Wages of Fear better after watching that.
Mhm.
I think that would have been because the characters are a little more ambiguous in their are they evil men or are they good men? It's a little more ambiguous on their backstory. So I think he may have been able to connect to the characters a little bit more. But I still think he would have liked this movie a lot, probably more than Star Wars, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Star Wars is something that he would have watched and
Oh, he did.
not. Yeah, I could see him not disliking it, but being kind of like, okay, that was a movie.
No, he made fun of it when he watched it with us.
Did he really?
Yeah.
That's great. He's the only person I will let get away with that.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's not for him. That's not for him.
Nah, he was an old man then, even at that point in time. This was a movie more his speed. I get it. So
I remember that says a lot about him because I remember I watched Space Jam with him several times. He never made fun of it, but I was like 5 years old, so maybe that's why.
yeah, I mean, like it wasn't so much that he made fun of it. He just made a lot of jokes throughout it. Like one of my fondest memories is watching Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade with him, and him just making jokes throughout it and making jokes afterwards about it. And I mean, like just about like the Nazi drinking from the wrong cup and shriveling up. Like he thought that was hilarious. He loved that sequence. Like he thought it was the silliest thing he'd ever seen, and he thought it was great, and he just joked about it for days. So
That's wonderful.
yeah. So
he had good taste. He had good taste.
He did. So yeah, so that was this movie. We both recommend you watch it. It's maybe I'll go and I'll plug this in ahead of time. I think the less you know about this movie going in, I think the more you'll enjoy it. There are some kind of surprises that I think are a little bit more impactful, and I mean they're still impactful after multiple watches, but I think are more impactful the first time you watch it. This movie ramps up insanely. It goes from like I can imagine a modern viewer really being bored at the beginning, and if they don't put the time into it to get to the second half of the movie, yeah, I could see somebody turning it off and not giving it the time of day, which I knew you wouldn't do, but yeah, I wanted to warn you ahead of time that. I think the first half is great. I love it, but yeah.
Yeah, I stand by that. I think if you find the first half boring, it's like, well, I mean, to each their own. We all enjoy different things, but I mean, if you can't enjoy the first half of the movie at all, then there's a lot of movies you're going to miss out on.
Yeah,
a lot of good movies you're going to miss out on if you can't even enjoy that.
Yeah, and I think that's why this movie doesn't probably have the acclaim. It's very much a cult classic, and I think that's why it doesn't have the acclaim that it really deserves. It is
a shame because it deserves a lot more respect, and just based on the one time I've seen it, I'm more like, yeah, that this movie should have gotten way more praise back when it came out.
Yeah,
Star Wars or not, there's no reason for it not to be respected.
Also, this time watching it, because I just recently watched The Exorcist. I'm pretty sure there's a Pazuzu statue in this movie. I think when they first start driving their trucks, there's a Pazuzu statue, and I think someone painted a Pazuzu statue on the hood of one of the trucks.
That's hilarious.
So there's I'm thinking there's little Exorcist Easter eggs, and apparently the villagers found out that William Friedkin directed The Exorcist, and they left the village. They were just so scared. So.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, and speaking of that scene where the burned up bodies come back and just the riot starts up.
Right.
Every time I don't know how you would. That just feels so raw. Like that feels like a documentary.
It feels real.
Know how I just can't imagine how you would capture that, how you would direct that. That's such a phenomenal sequence.
I was expecting them to, like, once the soldiers fire their guns a couple times, I was expecting the crowd to just kind of freak out and back up. but the way that they showed the crowd just did not care. That was wonderfully shot, wonderfully directed. That was that whole and that's another bit of it is how do you not enjoy that? I mean,
Right.
I don't know.
I mean,
Granted, that was about 30 minutes in.
yeah, somewhere around there. I mean, it's an emotional moment. Like you feel the people's just sorrow, and you feel their rage, and that's just. I mean, I know he got a bunch of villagers that weren't actors, and that to me says a lot about how good of a director William Friedkin is. That he could make that happen, and it's really. Yeah, and this movie just is full of moments like that. I mean, individual moments are amazing, and when you string them together, I really think you have just a fantastic and completely underrated film that I think most people should watch. I think most people would enjoy.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, I think that's all. Go watch this movie, please, and go watch it again if you've already seen it. If you've seen it before. But we'll see you next time. I think our next movie is The Hunt, right?
Yes, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, so it's the Mads Mikkelsen one, the good one. Another foreign language movie. So
this is what drives him to become the villain in Casino Royale.
You said that before, yes. Oh yeah, this was one of your favorite movies. That's right.
It is.
That on that list. Yeah.
This is I forget where it was at, but this is definitely top 5 for me.
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen it, so I'm excited to watch that. So I guess this will be your Sorcerer. So maybe.
Yes.
So.
Hopefully it's my Sorcerer and not my In the Mouth of Madness. That'll be coming later.
Yes, I'm waiting for you to make me watch a movie that I don't really care for, so maybe I can get you back.
Like Tokyo Drift or something.
Yeah, that would be a good one. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really like it. I was just thinking of movies that I know you would not enjoy.
All right. Well, that's it for this week or this episode. Whatever. We'll post whenever it comes out. Just watch it or don't. Whatever.
Do you think?
Or actually, if you've already watched it this far, what are we telling you? Like and subscribe. You're probably a bot that we've bought and paid for. So please like and subscribe if you're a bot that's watching this. So I'm glad you like this, man.
I did. That was really good. I'm really glad I watched it.
I'm too.
Fitter. Happier. More productive. A pig. In a cage. On antibiotics.